Hi there, I'm Simon. I'm currently sitting in a queue for the ferry to St Malo with 11 nights of fishing in front of me. I've literally got a ferry ticket and a car full of fishing stuff and a few ideas of some of the public lakes in France. I've never really fished public lakes in France before. I've done lots of fishing in pay lakes and lots of experience back in the UK. I should explain that I currently live on Guernsey, so I don't get a lot of carp fishing over here, and what fishing there is on small quarries, so I'm itching to get at some of the big lakes on France. One of the limitations of living on Guernsey and travelling to France for carp fishing is you've got to go through St Malo. I expect some of you heard rumours that a lot of the customs over there are quite stringent and are quite good at confiscating fishing bait travelling through the port there. So I've only got a couple of kilos of shelf life boilies, and I'll have to stop off at a big Pacific Pesh on my way down tomorrow to pick up some bait there. So I'm really limited to fishing shelf lives on particles, that sort of thing. I've got no sponsorships, not coming over with a ton of bait that's been paid for by any companies or tackle, so there'll be no plugs. The other limitation is that the ferry gets into St Malo at 5 o'clock this evening French time. It's currently the 23rd of September, so I reckon I've got till about 9 o'clock to get myself onto a lake this evening and set up for the night, and then I'll be getting up first thing tomorrow morning, heading down to Nantes to a big Pacific Pesh there to stock up, and then heading on down the motorway into France. So we'll see how that goes. Right, I don't know how much this is going to come out. I've got to a lake, got 3 rods out. It's a very long, thin lake next to a canal. It seems to be about 5 foot deep all across. I've put 2 rods out on the far margin next to a little snag, and there's a snag tree down to my left there. I've just sticked about half a kilo of boilies over to the far margin and about 30 down there. I've got some maize on to boil. Managed to get hold of some boilies, and I'll be up first thing in the morning and on the way. Right, so it's been a little while since I checked in. I was last on a little lake close to the ferry, and that was always just going to be an overnighter. But I woke up stupid early o'clock and decided to reel in about 5 and head down and get a bit of kip outside the tackle shop I was aiming at. So I got there about 6, had a kip, woke up at 5 to 9, popped just round the corner to the shop to find it had been ram raided over the weekend and they weren't going to be opening till the afternoon. So that was a bit of a waste of time. So then I decided to head on down into France, find another tackle shop on the way. Got there about lunchtime, then went on a great big wild goose chase trying to find some peanuts. Failed miserably, but I got a big bag of particle, so I'm sorted for bait for now. And then eventually got down to to the lake I was aiming at about 5:30 yesterday evening. Lovely lake, but very, very low at the moment. And although on the map it looked like there were lots of access roads, they all had barriers across them, and there's only one access point down to a slipway, which was right up the far end of the lake in the shallow area, which is so shallow that there were bits of the lake sticking out of the water. Not really where I wanted to be at this time of year. I didn't have the time before it got dark to do a long boat journey down to the dam end where I wanted to be. So gave that one up, which is a shame, because that one supposedly has fish over 25 kilos in it. So quick rummage through my file of likely lakes in the area, I came up with this place, which was about half an hour's drive away. So I got here about 6:30, something like that, and this is a lovely easy one to fish. There's a track that goes about 2/3 of the way down one side of the lake. It says it's 56 acres. I think that's when it's really full. I'd say, oh sorry, not 56 acres, 56 hectares, which is 150 acres. But it's not completely full at the moment, so I think there's probably about 30 or 40 acres that are dry up the top end. So about 100 acres, 120 at the moment, something like that. I managed to get a couple of rods out over a bit of bait. Went out in the boat just before it was getting dark. Straight out in front of me. It's very, very featureless, and not very deep either. The deepest I found was about 13 foot in front of me, going out about 3/4 of the way across the lake. So I just put a pile of bait and a couple of rods. It's only about 100 yards out actually, you could probably cast it, but it was just easier to dump it all with the boat while I was out there. And that's at the bottom of the slope, and then it's very, very flat at about 13 foot for most of the way across. And I pub chucked a third rod out and sticked about 100 boilies around it just to see. Hadn't seen any fish at this point, but during the night, well, they were showing and showing and showing everywhere in the lake, except in front of me, obviously. Mainly up to the right hand end there. I'll give you a view around the swim in a bit. The right hand end on the far side. I did see and hear some big fish crash quite close in actually, about 30 yards up to my right. But the majority seem to be fairly small fish, I think probably doubles to 20s. But there are a few good big splashes out there. And a lot of bream, I think. I've been getting a lot of liners, as you might have heard that one there. The bait area has been fizzing and slicking this morning, but I've only really seen bream on it. A couple of shows from the carp, but I don't think the carp are really in front of me. So I'm deciding what to do at the moment, whether to keep with the spot I've got, or whether to chase them and go out long. The wind is pushing down towards my way, so maybe they'll move down later on. We shall have to see how the afternoon plays out. I did put a fourth rod out in the area where I saw the bigger fish close in down to my right. This morning, again, that was just cast over 100 or so boilies. That's not done a thing. So I'll give you a little walk round the swim. That's the lake, dam end down there. My main spot's about 100 yards straight out in front there. Pub chuck rod's about 60 yards to the left. I was getting liners on that last night and fish were showing at that sort of range down to my left. Up to the shallow end, and probably that direction there was where I was hearing most of the fish last night, but 3/4 of the way across. I spent this morning getting a bit sorted out. I've got the power station up and running, charging phone and batteries. I've got a bait factory on the go, got some particles and tigers boiling up there. So I'm all settled now. I think I'll give it at least another 24 hours here. I've got my eye on a big, difficult lake a few hours drive away from here, and I'm trying to decide when the best point to move on to that's going to be. There's a bit of wind predicted, I think, on Friday. If I'm going to go there, I need to get on there before that, and it's nice to be on there when there's some wind, because apparently that place produces well in the wind, but it's so big you don't want to be out there baiting up and things like that and trying to find your spots in it. So well, there we are, that's where we're up to now. Well, that's a first for me. I feel so much better for it. Solar shower, heated up, it was lovely and warm in about 2 hours. Just had a shower. Wearing swimming trunks, obviously. Typically I haven't seen a soul since I got here, and as soon as I stepped out of the shower to get changed, a car came past. Oh well, there we go, they got a surprise. Well, there we are, we're off the mark. It's not quite what I was expecting or came for. Let's see if he'll behave. You can have a good laugh here if he beats me up. There we are, 19-pound grassy. Strange bite, just a couple of bleeps. I thought it was going to be a bream. They just kited round and then went berserk in the margins like they usually do. There we go, let's get him back. Another one, about 11-12 pounds, something like that, just as it's getting dark. Again on the close in rod. The wind's picked up, as you can probably hear, and it's blowing straight into my bank now. Another little pasty, about 10 pounds. I've just had both of my 200-yard rods taken out now. And the fish are actually showing quite close into me now. So instead of putting them back out there in the dark, I'm just going to pub chuck this back 30 yards out along with the other one and see what happens. Right, good morning. So last night, well yesterday evening, a strong southeasterly blew up, heading straight towards me. I had that pasty, that little mirror, on the close in rod, the right hand rod down just off that little point there, just after dark. Then in line with that clump of trees on the horizon, a spot about 200 yards, 3/4 of the way across the lake, and then about, I don't know, I think it must have been about 10 o'clock, both of those went. Another pasty and a missed or dropped take. In the wind and the dark, I didn't fancy putting them out again, so I just chucked them in the edge. And then strangely, at just before midnight, the wind dropped off completely, went flat calm. So I went and put both those two rods back out again. And then in the early hours, one of them went with another pasty, and at 6 o'clock this morning the other one went with another one, slightly bigger, about 13 pounds. It's the biggest normal carp I've had. And while I was playing that, the left hand rod, which is out there at about 100 yards, went as well. I picked that up, bent into it. It actually felt like a reasonable fish, bigger than what I had already. I had it on for about 15-20 seconds and then it fell off. So those rods have just been chucked out about 30 yards out. But since waking up, I've seen probably a dozen shows all over on this side of the lake. But I think I've had enough of here. It seems to be mainly small fish. There's definitely some bigger fish in here, but I think it's mainly lower doubles from what I've seen. So I'm going to get packed up. Typically now it's raining, and well, move on to pastures new. So I'll check in when we're sorted. Right, well that was probably one of the worst pack-ups I've ever had to do. Biblical rain, everything's absolutely soaked except I think my bed chair, but I think everything's going to drip down and soak the bed chair and the sleeping bag as well. So off to the next place, via McDonald's I think. Well, here we are. This is what I travelled all the way for. Some guys just setting up there. Missed out on that spot right by the car park. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, rain coming in later. This might be a bit of a rush. I'd better get on and find a swim. Right, so good morning. It's another morning. 24 hours gone with no fishing. So I turned up at my main destination yesterday as I checked in, and about 2 minutes after I last made a recording, I went down the track only to find that they'd put a height barrier in front of the slipway at 2 meters, and my car's got a roof box on it which is 2.25 meters, so I couldn't get to the slipway. All the other swims that were accessible by car were taken. There was one, but getting in and out of it if there was any rain looked like it was going to be an impossibility. So after all that travelling, I gave up on it. I travelled about 45 minutes down the road from there to another lake in the region, nice little sort of 100-acre barrage. There was some sort of hippie loving going on there, with the main fishing area had loads of hippie types with knackered camper vans camping under tarpaulins on the beach, loud music, not the one. So I racked my brains and thought, well, why not go for it and come right down here? This is right down. I'm a bit inspired by some videos I'd seen. There's some big fish. Actually, the videos were shot fishing using waders to get in somewhere up in those trees. Now, I think that was a few years ago. Obviously, there's apparently not been any rain down here for 2 years, and I was prepared for the levels to have dropped, but I was quite shocked to see this. I arrived just as it was getting dark. I've been trying to get down there as it was getting dark, but it's a bit dicey and I didn't want to do it in the dark. I'm going to have another go this morning. If not, there's a little slipway. Well, I say a slipway, it's now a road that ends in a cliff down there. There's a guy fishing down there, he's had one. There's some French guys in the no night zone a bit further on who've done really well by the sounds of things. The guy on the slipway's going after breakfast. He said I can have his swim, but first things first, I'm going to go and see if I can get down there. I've seen fish this morning. I was hearing them crash during the night. This guy down here doesn't look like he's the most professional outfit. He's got some sort of white, they look like spinning rods, to be honest. But I was hearing bite alarms during the night. I don't know whether he was catching or just fiddling with them. So anyway, we shall see. I don't know where I'll catch up with you next. I'm going to have to give it a go here because I think it's nearly 5 hours to the nearest next possible lake. And I don't want to have come all this way down and not even wet a line, so I'm going to try our hardest. Okay. I'm in. It's a bit sketchy, but I think even if it rains I'll be alright. I don't think we're due any rain. Obviously they've not had any proper rain, but you never know. My luck this trip. So get myself set up here, I think, for a few days. £16. My French friend behind the camera is very excited about this. Okay. Oh, no battery. Right, well, I'm all set up. I've got 3 rods out. As you saw, I've got a cat. I was putting the first rod out. Sorry, I'd put the first rod out. I was out on the boat putting the second rod out, and the French chap who's fishing 50 yards up from me came over and started waving his arms around. And I came back and I'd had a run on the first rod before I'd even got the second one out. It was already snagged when I picked it up. A bit of toing and froing, I couldn't free it, so went out on the boat and it came straight up, and it was a 15-pound cat. But there we go, we're up and running. So I'll just turn you around. So as you can see, the water level's incredibly low, but it goes down to about 9 feet, and I've seen lots of fish both last night and this morning. But I went out with the echo sounder, and it slopes gently off to 9 foot, about, I don't know, 10 yards in front of the far bank, which is about probably 100 yards away. And then if you can see down there's a wall, and I think that continues down on this bank because it slopes up very suddenly to about 3 feet. So I put 2 bottle markers out on the 3 feet bit, so hopefully it doesn't get caught up with any fish. Hopefully they won't run into the shallow water. Put a big load of bait out, lots of particle and boilie, and we'll see who comes to the party. The Spanish chap who's fishing on the slipway about 150 yards to my left last night had a 17 kilo mirror, so there's some bigger fish around. So at the moment I think I just want to have a bit of a rest. It's been a bit of a hectic couple of days really. Kick back, and then when this wind has settled down this evening, I'll put a brolly up and sort me tent and all the carnage that's just lying around the car out. Just haven't got the energy to do that at the moment. Okay. Little one, but first carp from this lake. So the take was so savage that I didn't get time to put the camera on for you. There we go. Well, hope you got that on camera. That was £21 and getting a bit bigger. So windy out there, it's rather exciting getting those baits back out. But all three are back out there, and I put another sort of 5 kilo particle over the spot, so looking good for the evening. Just hope this wind dies off. Right, morning. So I think I've had about 7 now, maybe 8, and they're all, apart from that 20 pounder, they're all struggling around the 10 pound mark, which is a bit of a ball ache going out in the boat every time, especially in this wind. The wind didn't let up all night. I had several just after dark. About midnight the wind eased off just slightly, and I was able to get rods back out, but they went again, and then the wind was back up again. So I literally just pub chucked them. In fact, one of the pub chuck rods went off twice during the night as well. So I've changed things around a little bit because of the wind. I'm only fishing, the far bank's only sort of just over 100 metres, but fishing with big shock leaders and braid. I tried casting it and I wasn't getting anywhere near it in this wind. And the weather forecast is for it to be even more windy today. So I thought, yesterday there were periods when I didn't have some rods out because I wasn't able to get out on the boat. So I put some mono with shock leader on to see how far I could cast, and I can get close enough. So I've been out there and baited up a little bit closer than my previous marks, only by about 10 yards maybe, and I can hit that with mono and a 4-ounce lead. So if I get fish and the wind's up later on, I should be able to get rods back out there again. So we'll see how that works out. I prefer to have the braid on, but there doesn't seem to be too much in the way of snags around out there. The catfish snagged me, but that was because I was out of the boat when I had the run and it had gone a fair way. I've not had any of the other fish pick up snags. So we'll see. The weather forecast for tomorrow is looking a bit better. The wind is only supposed to be in single figures, where this afternoon it says it's going to be up to, well, 20 miles an hour, but already if I turn you around, that's what it looks like out there at the moment. Well, at least it will save me a bit on battery, and if I can't get out there to put some bait out, I can probably spot that sort of distance even in this sort of wind. So we'll see how we get on. Right, well, here's a lesson. I was sorting things out on the boat, and I was moving the wires around on my echo sounder, and I accidentally knocked, if you can see, this silver rim on the plug-in socket for the power lead on my Garmin touched the opposite terminal. It was only for a couple of seconds, but there were sparks and it was horrendous. But it sort of melted the wire, so now I'm without an echo sounder. To be fair, at the moment I know what I've got out there in front of me. I don't need it. The fuse doesn't seem to have gone. I'm hoping my Garmin is still okay. I'm going to set about this wire with a pair of pliers and see whether I can resurrect it. Good news! With a bit of gaffer tape, as you can see, melted the insulation around the negative cable in about 5 places, and then unsoldered the joint onto the cable, onto the crocodile clip. With a bit of gaffer tape, and I've redone the joint. Obviously it's not soldered, but it's a compression joint, and it's working. So lesson learnt, and at least I haven't destroyed 300 odd quid's worth of echo sounder, and I've still got that if I need it. So this is the stamp of fish that I'm being played with. I'm about £10. Just had another one now, obviously. It's only been out an hour. Hopefully there are some bigger ones out there. It's known to do fish up to 60, so there's got to be something out there. The wind is definitely up on yesterday. Looks like the North Sea out there. Tiny. This is what we've been catching. The ugliest fish I've ever seen. It's obviously got a broken tail. Didn't fight one bit. I thought it was a snag all the way in. Poor thing. Right, good morning. That wind has finally gone. It's Sunday morning. It's just getting light. I had 4 fish this morning before it got light, starting at about 3 o'clock. One of them's half decent at last, a 25 pounder, so I'll finish my cup of tea and we'll get that one out to have a little look. Hopefully this wind will stay lighter today and do a bit more interesting filming for you. I'll show you some rigs and what bait I've been using and things. But I'm sure the wind will get up a little bit later. It tends to around here. Very cold this morning. My weather forecast says it's 7 degrees, but we're a lot higher up than the little town that comes up on the forecast, so I think it's a bit colder than that. It feels more like sort of 3, 4, 5 degrees. Glad I bought this big fat coat with me to come all the way to the south of France. My wife always laughs at me for taking 3 coats on holiday, but I'm really glad of it this morning. So here we are. Biggest fish of the ship so far. It's only 25 pounds. Not big by this lake standards. It's been crapping out tiger nuts in the sack. Huge pectoral fins, almost like with a tinge of blue on the tips, almost like a gurnard. Great big boily munching mouth, huge tail, didn't fight massively. There we are. There you go. While it's here, I'll just show you the rig I'm using. So, zoom in on that. Nothing revolutionary. That's a size 2 called a curved shank double X. A 20mm snowman. That's hardened krill. Sticky krill hook bait with a Northern Special pop-up. The krill boy has been soaked in spicy squid goo for a good couple of months. A little stripped section braid, one of these little fox sinkers, and a straightforward lead clip. Some lead core, and then that's going up to a couple of rod lengths of 40-pound braid onto this 15-pound nylon. Right, I'm sure you'll be excited to know what baiting strategy I'm using. So starting off with this stuff, baby corn. Pick it up in the French fishing shops. It's like a small extruded maize pellet. I like this. It really absorbs liquids, produces amazing slick when the fish get on it. So we start off with some of that. Nice clean bucket, obviously. It's quite cheap, this stuff, as well. Then we've got some hemp oil. Brought that with me from Waitrose. Into your hemp oil. And then this. Peanut oil, €3 courtesy of Mr. Leclerc. Into that as well. Dynamite krill. And some dynamite tiger liquid. And that. Give those a really good coating, and then just let them sit for a bit to absorb it.
5 minutes later.
So we give them that 5 minutes to absorb the liquid. We've got some maize. Prepared this the other day, well, probably about 5 days ago now. Plenty of maize. Pigeon conditioner. Tigers, and these I did all, I think it was last Wednesday. It's Sunday now. Give that a good mix around. Bit more. And here we go, boilies. So, Shimano squid and octopus. This was about €36. The French fishing shop. Brand I recognise. Some of them. Cheap boilies that I picked up. Well, actually, yeah, those are the cheap ones. Again, crayfish and squid. Some tiger nuts. Brought these over from me. One of the few things I can actually get on Guernsey. Bought a couple of kilos in case the ferry was delayed and I missed the fishing shop. A few of those, and I also managed to luck out and get some scopex squid. There might be a few other bits and bobs in there as well. So, plenty of boilies. That'll do. So I'm using my Garmin Striker, which I take off my proper sea fishing boat at home. I've got an extra transducer which I keep on this boat. Leisure battery, 56-pound E-thrust. Right, now you can see I'm really quite close to the opposite bank. As I said, there's a wall up there, and I think it probably continues, because although we're close here, it drops straight down just this side of my bottles to about 9 foot. Oh, there's some bubbling there. And you can probably see, I think that's probably fish on the bottom. So there's not really much in the way of snags out here. So I'm just motoring upwind of my last bottle. And I'll try and drift downwind as I put some bait out. Like a nice big area. Always end up drifting backwards. Need a little bit of power and not enough wind to get me drifting. See the bait sinking down there. Shit. A floating baiting spoon is a necessity. Finally found some better fish. This one at £21. Looked a bit bigger, very long and skinny. Came to a Northern Special Snowman on blowback rig on the right hand rod. Morning. Well, we're all packed down and ready to go. Once pastures new, but yeah, so last night I had a 21, which you've already seen, 29 and a 30, so we'll get them out and then we'll get on our way. There we go, £29. A bit lively. And these big Gernard pecks. Right. Okay, this one goes just on 30 on the Northern Special Squid Snowman. Right, let's get him back and get on our way. Right, so I've arrived somewhere, not where I was looking around on my bike. Looked like a lovely lake, known to hold good fish. The only problem is the access. I bumped into some rangers. You can only park on the road outside the park, and it's probably 500 yards to the nearest swim. Which was pretty overgrown, and then the next one on from that you couldn't really get down to the water, It was about 3 foot above the water, and like 500-600 yards to push all my stuff for 3 days, leaving the car vulnerable out on the road. I just didn't want to do it, and I think that I was vindicated. I carried on driving down the road on my way, and about 5 miles down the same road there was a big gypsy caravan site, so God knows. Yeah, no, not the one, I'm afraid. Shame. So that was after driving 5.5 hours. So I had a quick scrabble around. I had some options of going over to a lake about 1.5 hours away, which I knew I could access and night fish, but I wasn't sure whether it held any decent fish. When I looked around it on my summer holidays with the family, we only saw small fish. It also has got a rule about you only using 1 kilo of bait per person, but I mean, you can get around that. But it was in the wrong direction as well, so I carried on in the right direction to something on the map that said it was a night zone. I mean, it's a nice enough lake, but it's not ideal. You can see just the other side where those pylons are is the motorway, so it's a bit noisy. I can fish in front of my car, so at least that was good. Haven't seen a fish. It says it's got carp. It's got carp night swims. This is the only night swim on the side that's accessible by car, so that's fortunate that I got that. Well, I think I'd have been camping again. I just didn't have the energy to go any further. It was 4:30 by the time I got here, and I've been on the go since, well, on the road since 8:30 this morning. So yeah, it's not ideal. It'd do for a night, and then I'm going to head back on up. I've got a few places that I could go up close to the ferry. One of them's a big sort of park reservoir. That's another reason why it's not ideal. That's just one of them. There's another one around somewhere. I'm half tempted to dump half a bucket of particle up the margin somewhere so they bugger off up there. Well, we'll do this for a night, and I think we'll be moving on in the morning. Well, you never know, I might pull 2 40-pounders out in the middle of the night and stay for the rest of the week, but I think that's a very unlikely situation. So next time you see me, it'll probably be at another lake a bit further away, closer to home. Right, morning. It's Tuesday morning. We're at my next first choice port of call. Nothing happened on that little lake last night. I didn't see even so much as a roach fart or hear anything. I woke up at 4 o'clock with Roland and his friends scampering around, and thought, no, let's just get up and go before the rain came, and I'm glad I did, because I've just driven for 5 hours through torrential rain, and it's just stopped about half an hour ago. The lake's lovely and flat calm. It's about 11:15 in the morning, so I've arrived with enough time to have a decent look around, see if I can see anything. It's 250 hectares, so what, 700 acres or so. Looks like there's a few access points, so we'll have a little pot around before we get set up here. Nice not to have to rush for a change. I think this will be home for the next couple of days. Lovely looking lake, flat calm at the moment. There's a bit of bubbling going on in this bay. I haven't seen a definite carp. I came to this spot a bit earlier on, and as I walked back to the car I heard a splash, turned round, and there was a set of rings coming out, probably only 50 yards out where the bubbling is. There was a seagull flapping around. I'm not sure whether it was that. But I've driven more or less all the way around the lake at all the accessible areas, and I think this is probably the most promising. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bivvy up so it looks like I'm here, and then pop to the shops. Alright, well, today's gone quite well. I'm actually on the lake that I wanted to be on, my first choice, which is the first time this trip. Had a really good drive round. It's about 700 acres, something like that. Much closer to the ferry. I've got 3 more days ahead of me, so I've properly made a camp, and so I'm in the swim that I showed you in earlier. That was the first one I stopped off to have a look at. I went on, had a look at another sort of 3 or 4 swims around the lake. Pretty good access to most of them, but most of them were up the top end where there's an awful lot of lilies up there. Carp may be up there, but I didn't see anything. I haven't seen anything at all actually. It's been flat calm all day. Nothing definite anyway. So I just went on where I saw some bubbling going on in this swim earlier on. I think I lucked out actually, because I came down here and thought, right, I'm going to fish here, but I need to go to the supermarket to get some supplies. So I put the bivvy up in the swim first, and then went off to visit Mr. Leclerc in the town. And as I was coming out the track, Mr. and Mrs. France were coming down the track with their cart and a trailer, and I'm pretty sure if I hadn't had a bivvy in this, they'd probably be set up here themselves. So that was a wise plan that paid off, I think. So I'll show you around the swim a little bit. I'm fishing 4 rods. I've got one over to those pads there. I've seen something move in there. I don't know whether it was a carp or not. It's not huge anyway. And then there was bubbling sort of out in the mouth of this bay. So I put 2 rods sort of about 100 yards out into the mouth of the bay. They're castable, but baiting up with the boat. And the right hand rod, I don't know if you can see, the sun's catching on there's a little pink prime bottle straight out in front there, about 150 yards maybe, sort of into the middle of the lake. I thought I saw sort of some bit of structure on the bottom. It's very shallow all over the lake. Even out there it's only about 6.5 foot deep, coming into only about 3 to 4 where the lilies are. It's about 5 where my middle 2 rods are. There's a lot of lake. I'm about halfway down it. It goes all the way down there. That's where I did the video when I turned up this morning, and it carries on up there for, I don't know, probably about another half a mile maybe. Reputedly has a decent stock of carp, to 45 pounds plus. There's a few accessible swims down to my right there, maybe 3 or 4. So I've got the boat set up. I'm on the edge of a little sort of inlet there, lots of lilies up there, shallow. Seems like the sort of place that carp might want to be in the sun. And there we are, there's the rest of my swim. And quite interesting, it looks like the sort of place where you're allowed to have a fire, so I might get on and do that. I've got some fresh stuff from the supermarket, so I'm going to have a barbecue this evening. Well, the obligatory cooking dinner's shot. Big steak, tomato and chips. didn't do much cooking on the other lake. I was just eating out of tins. You weren't allowed to barbecue. If they saw a naked flame down there, you'd probably get crucified. Everything was so dry. You only needed to look at a blade of grass in a funny way and it would probably have burst into flames. But everything's actually really wet here. I struggled to get the barbecue going with a bit of dry twigs that I found. I was going to have a fire, but I think everything's just too wet. I obviously had the huge amount of rain that I drove through on the way to get here overnight. Hopefully things will dry out in the next couple of days or so and I might get a fire going. And there it is, ready. Yummy! Proper food, first proper food for a week. Well, when I say proper food, I mean food that hasn't come out of a tin or a McDonald's. And for dessert, tartelette poire almond, pear and almond tart. I made these, honestly. Right, morning. It's Wednesday the 2nd of October. A lovely, still, tranquil morning. If it wasn't for the farmers. There's a combine harvester going on the other side of the lake making a racket, and there's a tractor in the field behind me. Managed to coincide a period when they're both as far away as possible so I can hear myself think. Nothing really to report last night. I did see a couple of fish roll about 150 yards down to my right, about 100 yards out. I probably heard about a dozen shows between last night and this morning. Difficult to place them. I think there was some off that point and some way down to my right, a long way out towards the reserve area, and the bay down to my right. I had a little jangle on the right hand long rod, which pulled it out the clip but didn't go and then fell back, and I tightened back up. The lead was still on, so I suspect that was probably a bream. The middle rod about 10 minutes ago gave off about 4 or 5 beeps, but the indicator didn't seem to move at all. I've got captive back leads on, and the bottom slopes very gently and smoothly out to the spots, and I think the line's probably pinned down to the deck, so I don't think they're liners as such. Again, it's very flat, calm conditions, not ideal feeding conditions for big lakes like this. So I think I'm going to leave them out till lunchtime, and then I'm going to pop to Mr. McClurk again. That was the left-hand rod down to the pads. Again, I think it's probably a bream picking things up. I did see something roll in the pads this morning, but I came to the conclusion that it was probably a pike. So yeah, I'll leave them out to lunchtime. Go down to Mr. Leclerc to pick up a couple of things that I forgot, like some firelighters. Getting the barbecue going last night was a bit of a mission. In stark contrast to the lake down south. Everything here is quite wet. Even the dead wood's quite wet. So it was a bit tricky lighting the barbecue. I found a shopping list in the car. Eventually got it going with that. So we'll see how things pan out for the day. So I was getting a series of twitches on the long rod at 200 yards, and little twitches up and down and nods on the wrong tip, on the rod tip over about 5 minutes. So I decided to see what was on the end of it, and my suspicions were confirmed with this great big slab of a bream of about, I don't know, 5 pounds. 8-ounce lead. Not making bite indication with these things obvious. Don't know how long it's been on for. I had an indication last night. I hope it's not been on all night. So yeah, after that bream I wound all the rods in, went to the shops, and I've got everything back out. I thought about putting things a bit further around to the right, but it starts creating some sort of tight angles on a little point, a promontory around to my right there, with all these yellow flowering weeds which actually go out into the water a little way. So yeah, when I wound one of the rods off the sort of middle spot, about 100 yards out there, one of the boilies, I don't know if you can see that, it's had some attention from some sort of nuisance. I think it's probably poisson chat looking at it. It looks more like an area that's been rasped away rather than little claw marks, no marks on the pop-up. That's the first sign of any nuisance species I've had when I've been out here actually. I was expecting a bit more of it down south, but that's a sticky baits Harzen krill bottom bait 20mm. It's been out 24 hours. It's still really hard, and if that's all they can do to me, I'm happy to go without wrapping them at the moment. If I start getting back tiny little whittled down things, I might have to wrap the baits. While I've got this on, I'll just show you, I think I've shown you this before, it's been a godsend. It's the solar charging setup. So I've got a panel here made by Eco-Worthy, and the whole kit with the panel and the control and the wires I think cost me about 150 quid or something like that. It's made of a flexible plastic, so it's less likely to get damaged. In the car I've still got the box for it, which has got some padded cardboard in it, so that just goes on the bottom of the boot with everything else on top of it, so it stays flat. And this is the control panel you get with it. A little display there saying that getting 13 volts out of it, even though it's overcast today. And before I went to the shops, that battery, that third bar was flashing, and now it's on the fourth bar. So it seems to have done quite well. It's got some USB chargers, so I can charge phones and GoPro batteries and things like that. It seems to charge them pretty slowly though, but it's doing the job. So that's it for this afternoon. Kick back and relax. It feels like something could happen. I mean, it's not windy, but it's overcast. There's a slight northerly wind. It's nice and warm, comfortable to be walking around in a t-shirt. So I think if I had fish in front of me, I'd probably be catching them, but I just don't think they're in this bit of the lake. Where I have seen that, well, heard them last night, was in that bay right down there, and we're talking about probably 400 or 500 yards from the bank down that area to get to them. So I mean, I think even with the hassle of moving, I probably wouldn't be able to get to them anyway. I think carp on a big featureless lake like this, bit more inclined to move around, hopefully, right? Unless they're sort of holed up in a feature. Weed, there's no weed in here, apart from what's in the margins, in inches of water. I didn't find any snags out there, so hopefully they'll just wander their way around the lake, find my baited areas, and I'll just sit it out and see. It's a comfortable enough spot to do that. Nothing more to report on the fishing front. Barbecue's done. Had my dinner. Tipped the coals out onto the fire pit, and I think I'm okay and having a little fire tonight. Everything's very wet. If you did this in the south of France where I was before, you'd probably be shot. But it's October now, and I actually struggled trying to find dry wood. So this is a nice little treat. I've got another tartlet au pomme allemande for my dessert. Had a shower earlier on, so feeling a bit more human. I've had 2 visits from the garde de pêche. I was having a nice quiet afternoon nap. I got woken up by a bonjour. He was a nice chap, spoke a bit of English, happy with everything I was doing. And that was that. So started getting the stuff for a shower ready. And then another car pulled up, and another garde de pêche came out. He didn't speak any English at all, but he was happy with what I was doing. But they can only have been like 20 minutes apart. You don't see one for 10 days and then 2 come along at once. There we are. See what tonight brings. Oh. I think that must have been a pike. I've been bitten off before. Yeah, so new rig on, back out there. I think it's definitely a pike. After inspecting the line, the mono was frayed for about 5 yards above the lead core. It's obviously picked up the line somehow, slid down the line till it's hooked itself and then bitten through the hook link. So a bit of excitement. Must have been a decent sized pike. I don't know whether you could see, it was displacing some water out there. Good morning. We had one about 5 o'clock this morning. Off the middle rod, the middle area, on a tiger nut. I didn't hear any fish last night really, but it's encouraging that there's some fish out there even when you're not seeing anything. Went 23 pounds. Let's see whether she'll behave herself. There we go. See if I can get some photos at the same time. Now it's about 10:30 on Thursday evening, and I've just had this little chap, pretty little common, about £16. This came from the pads rod down to the left hand side. I thought I'd seen some fish splashing in there, but I wasn't sure it was carp or pike. This one's 31. It's gone on the long rod. Be about 11, half 11 now. Faffing around with the boat. It was worth it in the end. Right, so I'll put that one back out with the boat. Got back into bed and it went straight away. And I've got another 31 pounder. I thought it was going to be bigger. It's a really wide fish, but there's not much belly to it. Quite lively though. Using the car headlights to light the swim. I'm sorry to the people camping over the other side. Well, the sun's just risen on the last dawn of my 11-day road trip. I've got to be off here by midday to get the ferry. I'll talk you through what happened last night. About 10 o'clock, the left-hand rod off to the pads went, and that was the little common, about 16 pounds. Then about midnight I just got into bed and the long rod on the right went, and it was a funny take, a bit twitchy, and I wound it all the way in from about 150 yards, I think that one is, maybe nearer 200, thinking it was a bream. It just came straight towards me. Then at the last minute it kited round to the right, and I thought, well, maybe there's a bit more to it. So I waded out to get it, and shone the head torch and thought I saw a small common. And then as it came closer towards me, the small common turned into a 31 pound mirror. So I hope you managed to get some reasonable footage of that. I was using the car headlights to light the unhooking mat up. So I put that back out with the boat again in the dark. By this time it was about 1 o'clock. Hopped straight back into bed, and literally as soon as I did the sleeping bag up, it went again, and that was the other 31 pound mirror. So I got it back out another time. It's been twitching a little bit this morning. There might still be some fish out there. There might be time for a last chance whacker. But you know, I've done 11 days out here. I think I worked out I've had 32 carp, a catfish and a grass carp, most of which have been doubles. I think there were 6 20s and 3 30s. But I can't complain. It's the first time I've done anything like this, and I've loved every minute of it. So, unless something else happens, it's probably the last time you see me. Until next time. Au revoir.